Wolfpack, what is going on? It's your boy, the Wolf of Roto Street. RotoStreetJournal.com. We breed and feed you fantasy wolves here with your Week 4 waiver wire. I am so pumped to dive into yet another one. I feel like every single week so far this year, we've had at the top somebody that you should be willing to blow everything on to go out and get, and that is no different this week. We got a player at the top I would empty the entire FAAB for, plus another guy in that top 3 worth 50 to maybe even all of your FAAB as well. This has been a loaded waiver wire season. I don't expect it. It never really does continue this way, but ultimately you got to be ready to pounce because there are going to be people in your leagues willing to throw down everything to get some of these names. So come on in. If you enjoy what you hear at any minute, that thumbs up button is so greatly appreciated to help us get out to more people. And you can find all our other coverage at rotostreetjournal.com where we break this all down in written form. But let's waste no more time here as you guys are here and gathering. Let's talk about a few players in those shallower leagues, maybe 10-team leagues that are probably not in your league. I get it. You're the toughest league in the world. But ultimately, they might be out there in some shallower leagues you're in, your work leagues, whatever it might be. Just double check for these guys before you dive too deep. Adam Thielen being the first guy I'd look at. He's dominating out of the slot this year, 70% of the time. He's using his craftiness in that slot role to get open. 18 and 32 fantasy points in full PPR his past 2 weeks. Was a top 10 receiver on those 32 points. In fact, top 5 last week. 29% and 25% target shares across those 2 games. A whopping 14 targets last week and benefited greatly from Andy Dalton. Now, we don't know. Will he be in this week or not? Certainly the whole offense seemed to benefit, but they also are committed to Bryce Young, their number 1 overall pick, want to make sure to develop him. But Dalton, man, 58 passes, 34 of them completed for 361 yards and 2 touchdowns, operating this offense at a breakneck pace, getting it moving and marching down the field, and Thielen being that main engine, 145 yards and a score to rack up those 32 PPR points. A monster day for him. It's back-to-back weeks where he's operated as that main engine. Check it out if he is available in your waiver wire. Definitely a top priority. Also, go look for Zach Charbonnet. He got dropped after a pretty slow start, wasn't very involved in those first couple weeks, but this week it was almost a near 50-50 snap split share here, and not just because the Seahawks got up big and were using Charbonnet in garbage time. No, in the first half, Charbonnet played 49% of the snaps compared to 53% for Walker. They were on the field the same time at a few moments of that game, and even in quarter 1, 53% Walker, 47% Charbonnet. So he was out there pretty extensively, got 9 carries, 46 yards on him. He only hauled in 1 reception, but ultimately playing 32 of 75 snaps on the game as a whole. That was a huge bump up. He hadn't seen more than 28% leading into this week. Big bump up for him there. He also got 42% of the routes this week, and he keeps creeping up towards that 60% or so for running back, an elite share there. Definitely can get it done there and looked very physical on his runs. So yes, maybe a little bit of standalone value as this role continues to grow into what we probably expected entering this year. Kenneth Walker, not to be outdone. He had a monster game. He's still a top 6 running back rest of the season from the 18 carries, 97 yards, another 2 touchdown day, 59 yards on 3 catches of the air. I mean, Kenneth Walker, 156 total yards. We get it. This is his show. But if anything did happen to him, Charbonnet would be looking at a true top 10 role the rest of the year. And the little glimpses we're getting of him, it looks like he would thrive just as well should he get it. And his role is going to continue to grow. So definitely check for him. And maybe the last time I'll be able to post about Jaylen Warren, he was under 50% for back-to-back weeks, and now he's at 56% rostered. But just one last reminder that you have to go out and get this guy. He has now outscored Najee Harris on all 3 weeks in PPR leagues, at least, to begin the season. Najee Harris, 5, 5, and 7 PPR points. Disgusting. Hasn't topped the top 30 running backs yet. Meanwhile, Jaylen Warren, no real explosions yet, 7, 13, and 8, but still better than Najee. It's similar to, we've talked about it every single week so far, Zeke and Tony Pollard last year, where Zeke would continue to slug around and get his usage, but eventually they just decided to turn the keys over. He blew up for top 10 numbers the rest of the way. And I don't think Jaylen Warren is the talent of Tony Pollard, not even close, but I still think he could blow up if given the more of the keys to this backfield. He only topped 40% of snaps twice last year. He's already done it in 3 straight games, running more routes now than Najee Harris. It's just going to continue to grow in his favor. So love to see Jaylen Warren on all my teams. And Najee Harris, again, looking like the biggest bust of the year. that wraps up our first check. Again, in those shallower leagues, probably not available in your leagues. I get it. But let's now dive into all the players that are at least 50% or more available across leagues. Starting at the top, my number one waiver wire pickup by a mile this week. Blow it all. Truly 100% of the FAAB. DeVon Achane, as now I believe how it's supposed to be pronounced. Adam Schefter tweeting that out. We've all been mispronouncing it this entire time, but DeVon Achane, I believe, is how it's supposed to be pronounced. Maybe I'm butchering it again, but that's what I'm going by with what Adam Schefter tweeted out. Regardless of how it's pronounced, only 42% rostered. This guy put up 51 fantasy points this last week, and he's still out there at over half of leagues. 232 total yards, 4 touchdowns, 22 touches for DeVon Achane. I gotta absolutely blow that number one waiver spot on him. Blow all the FAAB you have to. He is well worth it, and I've gotten a lot of flack for posting that out. It's irresponsible, somebody called me, for saying this. Why? This is the perfect skill set for the Mike McDaniels offense. What does he do well? Hit home runs. What does his coach put him in position to do well? Hit those home runs. What did he do already in his first extensive action? Hit multiple home runs. I can say it over and over again. One of the fastest running backs to ever come out, certainly the fastest of this class and top 2 in the last decade, DeVon Achane. A monster performance too. 20% of his carries in college went for 10 plus yards. He was well known for his zone running, his acceleration. All of those things are perfect for Mike McDaniels, a wide zone scheme, and also loves getting speed in space. Nobody craves and utilizes speed better than Mike McDaniels, and no running back in the NFL has the speed of Achane. After this last week, too, he ultimately has him and Tyreek Hill just alternating right now as a top ball carrier speed in the NFL. Do you really think Mike McDaniels, after seeing his team go for 70 points in the first time he really used Achane, is going to put this cat back into the bag? No way at all. I get the concerns. He's a smaller back. He had a shoulder injury in early camp. Raheem Mostert, he's thriving at running back 1 in fantasy so far. And we all had that one on our book, right? Jeff Wilson's going to return eventually. Do I have to worry about Salvin Ahmed? This is my opinion on it. 1 rookie year, Alvin Kamara, he was the running back 3 in fantasy, despite not hitting 30% of the rush attempts. If you're just boxing Achane into this, I'm only a running back type role, he's not going to ever have the full lead back. That doesn't matter to me. I just want the guy that's going to be this creative mismatch nightmare move around chess piece for Mike McDaniels, one of the most creative schemers out there in the league. Again, utilizing speed better than anybody else. I think at minimum after a game like this, we'll be getting 7 to 12 touches, upside for more if something ever happens to Raheem Mostert, who is 31. He's only made it through a full season twice across his long career, lengthy soft tissue injury history. Obviously, we're not rooting for injury. I love what Mostert's doing. I love the player in general, but we've seen him go down multiple times. Jeff Wilson, expected to come back, but who really knows what's happening there? And again, even if these guys stay healthy all year, we're talking about ceiling. If something happens to them and this guy, DeVon Achane, gets the entire backfield for multiple stretches, then even better for him. But I don't think he needs that to pay off 100% of your FAAB. I believe you're behind Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and then whoever that lead back is, he's going to slide in as that clear-cut number 4 option. And again, get scheme touches each and every week. It's very rare to have these blow-it-all recommendations between those Rams guys, Puka and Kyron Williams in week 1, then Jerome Ford, and now Achane. But this is probably going to be one of the last times I say this. Blow it all. Go get this guy. It's the perfect mix of scheme, of overall team, and overall talent. It all is coming together for this kid, and I believe you're going to get quality RB2 production each and every week with those blow-up spikes like we just saw this last week. 51 points. I get he's not going to get that again, but still, huge upside each and every week with a quality floor, in my opinion. Go out, do whatever you have to do to go get him. And that brings us to our first super chat of the day. Thank you so much, Stephen Drakes. Such a generous super chat. You guys crushed on Sunday, making it well worth us. It was amazing. And I think you just got this baby answered for you, Stephen Drakes. Number 1 waiver spot? Yes, absolutely. Go out and get this guy. Even if you have Eckler, Gainwell, Stevenson, Warren, like you need some depth clearly there. Is Stevenson really kind of floundering here? Yes. And then Gainwell and Warren aren't really that excited. I'd rather have Achane above all of those guys other than Austin Eckler, and who knows when he's going to officially be back. So yes, Steven, especially if you have that as your depth chart, I think he's worth it anyways, even if you have a strong running back depth chart, just because of how talented I think the kid is and how perfect of a fit this is in this offense, but especially if you're running back needy, no doubt in my mind, below that number one waiver spot, I don't think we're going to get a talent this perfectly glove-like fit into the best offense in the league, best offense we've seen maybe ever at this point, right? So I think absolutely go out and get this kid. No doubt about it, Stephen Drakes. And thank you so much for your generous support of the show. It means a ton for us. So thank you. Moving on to number 2, 50% of the FAAB, in my opinion, is Tank Dell. 33% rostered. I said it before week 2, stash this kid. He was only 5% rostered at the time. Last week, my number 2 waiver pickup, just about 20% rostered at the time. He's already up to 33%. This is definitely going to be your last call. And I still think, even though he's more expensive now to go out and get him, Tank Dell is well worth it. Hopefully you were with me and started him last week after that monster day. We just saw 22.5 fantasy points per game for Tank Dell since becoming an every down player, 80% or more of the routes in back-to-back weeks since Noah Brown got hurt. And I think this is going to kind of be the rule, not the exception, because this could have even been bigger. He missed a touchdown opportunity in back-to-back games as well. Could have had 2 touchdowns in last week. Got tackled right at the 1-yard line. Just missed it. And the week before had a second touchdown that got called back on the penalty. So we could be talking about a guy averaging nearly 30 points per game had he scored those, and looks so great doing it. Running wide open, just like all the camp reports said, just like he looked like in the preseason. It's carried over to the NFL level. And this isn't a guy that, yes, he's smaller, under 170 pounds, 5'8", but we're starting to see, just like Achane we just talked about, Tutu Atwell this year. Maybe it's the year of the short kings, because they are absolutely killing it. It is an outlier for someone of this nature, but look at how he was such an outlier in college, commanded 32% or higher target share across his last 3 seasons of college. And over those last 2, Dell led all college receivers in receptions, 199, yards, 2,727, and touchdowns with 29. So despite his diminutive size, he's always been a big touchdown scorer. He's always been a high yardage guy. He had 26 red zone touchdowns across his last 3 seasons. Quentin Johnson, who we're going to talk about in a little bit, only had 3, a 6'4" monster. Give me the little guy. He is an absolute machine. I love this kid. CJ Stroud, also a very intriguing waiver wire pickup. He looks like the best rookie passer of this class so far. Maybe Richardson, the best overall prospect at quarterback. But Stroud, man, he is killing it, averaging 302 yards per game so far. That's 5th in the NFL. He's now 3rd most in terms of passing yards through your first 3 games among a rookie, Cam Newton and Justin Herbert, leading the way in that stat. Shocking that it's Cam Newton. His highest 2 career passing games were his first 2. Which just blows my mind. But Stroud right up there. And this is without a great line in front of him. Almost the entire line has been banged up. A lot of people speculating this could have been a top 15 line after being a bottom 30. They put a ton of resources into it to go and beef that up. So Stroud, quarterback 14 on the season, quarterback 11 since Tank Dell ended up becoming a full-time player. Remember, he banged the table for this kid, said, I want you guys to go out and get him to ownership. They listened, and now this duo is making fantasy magic. They're only going to continue to grow with each other. It's just a phenomenal overall system that I think will only get better when the line improves, with time and chemistry continuing to grow. 4th in pass attempts so far, the Texans are, and CJ Stroud is 21.5 points for CJ Stroud this week, 20.6 the week before, averaging 21 points per game. That's more than Tua, Geno Smith, Purdy, Dak, Deshaun across his last 2 games, and it truly does feel sustainable. So Tank Dell, in my opinion, beats out Nico Collins at this point. In my rest of season big board, you can find it, rotostreetjournal.com. I bumped him all the way to a top 30 wide receiver, a top 60 overall, and CJ Stroud, a top 15 quarterback for me. The rest of the way, I'd pay 50% or higher FAAB on Tank Dell, about 12 to 18% FAAB on CJ Stroud. Both of them top 10 pickups, though, this week. I love this passing game, and I think it will only improve as the year and the line go further here. Moving forward, next guy on my list is Romeo Dobbs. Got dropped after a lackluster week 2 by a lot of people. Let's cover him. Let's cover a few other Packers guys that are inside my top 10 pickups at this point, that being Jaden Reed and Luke Musgrave. But the first guy you got to look to is Romeo Dobbs, 19 and 18 fantasy points in 2 of his 3 games so far. And those games included 25 and 26% targets per route run. You look at the offense as a whole, 44 pass attempts and a negative game script where they had to be playing from behind. it's good to see that LaFleur will just air it out as much as he can. Only 50% of those passes completed. Jordan Love looking a little shaky this last week, despite leading an incredible comeback. Love the real life production. A little shaky for fantasy at this point, but Dobbs was certainly leading the path. 12 targets, 5 of them hauled in for 73 yards and a touchdown. 17.3 and 15 average depth of target in those 2 games where he wasn't injured. The first game of the season, he only played about 60% of snaps and still had 2 touchdowns that week. He did catch the red zone, the go-ahead touchdown. He is that go-to move the chains as well as the end zone guy. 43% of the team's end zone targets in those 2 strong games so far. Dobbs is crushing it. Definitely the number 1 here. Yeah, I know Christian Watson, he's going to return. They play different roles, though. Dobbs can stretch the field, but that's more so what Christian Watson will do. I think he is going to be that possession guy, the high volume guy, seeing a ton of targets in that sense, as is Jayden Reed, who's right around my number 10 pickup of the week. Him and Luke Musgrave rounding out the 10 and 11 spots in my top 12 list so far. Both of these guys heavily involved. Nobody's run more routes actually this year than Luke Musgrave. It's been over 80% of the routes every single week, and he's seen 15, 13, and now this week, 19% of the targets, trailed only Romeo Dobbs there with that, and actually led the team in catches with 6 of his 8 going for 48 yards and just barely missing. And we've said this a couple times now with Musgrave, so hopefully I can't wait for the week where we can finally say, yes, he connected on that deep bomb, but I do love the fact they continue to pepper and go for that deep shot with Musgrave as he streaks down the seam, and he's almost always wide open on those routes. He's getting so free from his defenders at this point. So I love Luke Musgrave's usage for tight end at this point where it's such a Hail Mary position beyond the top 5 or 6. He seems to be having the most unique usage and maybe developing into a Sam Laporta light, the other rookie who's just insane at this point, top 6 in my rest of the season, big boy. Could see Luke Musgrave, him and Jordan Love start to connect on these deep bombs, could have that much more value. So he gets that 10 spot for me, a little bit more of a tricky position to find production at tight end than wide receiver. But Jayden Reed in another solid effort, 7 targets, 3rd on the team there, caught 3 of them for 63 yards and had 2 shots, nearly caught a touchdown, and the defender made a great play to slap it out, and then they just barely missed on another end zone shot from Jordan Love. So it could have been an even bigger day for him, but still continuing to dominate out of the slot. We did see on the positive front, his routes now increased to 72% of the route share. The ADOT went up to 15.5 in the meantime as well, and still seeing 17% target share here. Not quite on the 26% target share we saw last week, but that's just because Love had to throw it so much. Dobbs became that kind of go-to guy. All these guys are very valuable and viable as playing and fill-in options here. It'll be intriguing to see how this looks once we do get Christian Watson inserted back into the lineup. But ultimately for right now, these guys have all carved out some interesting roles, and I do think Christian Watson will do his thing. He'll be playing that kind of Wixley on the flea flickers where they sling it deep, and I think that's going to really help this overall offense because he thrives, Christian Watson, on those, and he can command some of those deep curls and crossers. He's going to definitely get his too. I love Christian Watson. I'm excited for him to return based on how good these other quality targets have looked, but I don't expect Reed, Dobbs to really see their role shrink too much because Wicks has even seen 6 to 8 targets in games right now too, and I think we can just slide that production and at times about double because Christian Watson just doubled the player there. But that's how I'm handling these Packers. About 25% of my FAAB on Romeo Dobbs, 12 to 15% on Reed and Musgraves, maybe even bumping Musgraves up to 20% if you're desperate for a tight end at this point. Wolfpack, we are going to now move on to one of the most pressing situations for fantasy after one of the biggest injuries. Well, we do. If you enjoy what we're here, we got 20 or so of you here. This is one of our more popular shows, and we love it. Thank you so much for being here. If you enjoy what you're hearing, please do consider that thumbs up button. It really does help us grow and get out to more people. Consider subscribing to the channel. It would mean the world to have you. We're climbing almost at 4,000 so far, climbing by the day, and it means the world. It's so awesome to see. It's why we do it for you guys and to continue to grow our outreach. So please do consider helping us by sharing, liking, retweeting, getting it out to everybody. We got the mailbag filling up, which I can't wait to hit in a little bit. Let's dive in, though, to the Chargers situation. Mike Williams suffers a torn ACL off a humongous day, 130 yards, touchdown, looking like such a great fit in this explosive Kellen Moore attack. 32% of their their plays or their drives rather have ended in touchdowns. The Miami Dolphins are the first team with 47% of their drives ending in touchdowns, which is just a historic rate. But right behind them are the Chargers right now at 31%. And that is because this Kellen Moore attack is absolutely killing it. So pour one out for Mike Williams. He was such a great fit, but it also does leave behind a significantly valuable role for someone to inherit. Now, who's it going to be, though? Josh Palmer or Quentin Johnston? We got to figure out. We got to sift through it. I do side with Josh Palmer in probably 80% of situations here. Definitely comes with the most immediate floor and production. If you lost Mike Williams, you need someone to jump right into your lineup, or you want some bye week support with the buys looming in week 5. I think you got to look to Josh Palmer first. He's worked ahead of Johnston all season. After the Williams injury, he went in and ran 100% of the routes. Johnston, meanwhile, was limited to just 25%, even with Mike Williams removed. And that was only a handful of drives. Wasn't a huge sample size, so can't overreact, and they'll definitely be scheming more Quentin Johnston in these practices, getting him ready to pick it up. But we have seen Palmer before with no Mike Willie, and it's been actually pretty solid in lesser overall attacks. In 5 career games without Mike Willie, he's had a pace here, Josh Palmer, for 143 targets. I mean, that would be top 15 to even top 10 usage in any given year. He also was on pace for 95 receptions and 1,051 yards, in addition to 3 touchdowns. Now, 3 touchdowns look a little sketchy, but that did all average out to 13 fantasy points per game. That'd be right around the top 30 wide receivers, certainly this season and really any given season. I think those touchdowns could be in line for a spike, given this is now the more explosive Kellen Moore offense. The fact that, again, he was the every snap player so far. All the training camp reports consistently from the beats praising Josh Palmer as that guy in camp. So I think he's going to step in and immediately see the biggest workload boost. If you need the floor, you need the immediate production, I think that's the guy you target. And like I said, even the ceiling, I know everyone's going to say Quentin Johnston, the bigger at rookie, more of a Mike Williams size speed combo, higher ceiling player for sure. And yeah, as the unknown, we've seen Palmer and he's never truly just lifted off into top 20 wide receivers. But again, top 30 stats in any games that Mike Williams hasn't played, that's nice. That's safe. And that's something you can rely on if you just lost Mike Williams here. Now, I will admit, Quentin Johnston, he is the higher ceiling play. And I know that's going to be the common narrative. You want floor, go Palmer. If you want ceiling and you don't need somebody right now, go Quentin Johnston. And I agree to that to an extent, because Johnston in college, man, he had some extremely impressive totals and analytics. So dangerous after the catch. In fact, one of the most dangerous yak guys in the last decade we've seen, which you don't typically think of for a big 6'3" size speed combo. They might be more of a jump ball, deep ball artist. No, this is a yak machine. He was the best in career missed tackles forced per reception among 511 qualifying Power 5 receivers since 2014, and 18th best in career yards after the catch per reception as well. You also look at, wow, he just shouldered this TCU passing attack over the last 3 years. TCU with him in the lineup averaged 247 passing yards per game when he played. That was 31 games, but only 171 passing yards in the 6 games that he missed. Essentially 42% better with Quentin Johnston on the field. And I got these stats from Scott Barrett, one of the best rookie analysts out there in the game. In his article of the pre-draft rookie wide receivers, he had Quentin Johnston ranked 3rd as he cited some of these stats. And when he's been in here so far at the NFL level, he's been used. 21% targets per route run. That's 3rd on the team right now behind the 2 big guns. So we've seen him try to get worked in, try to get usage there, but he just really hasn't ultimately panned out huge. And the other thing you got to think about with Quentin Johnston, despite having that size, a lot of people, he's the immediate fill-in for Mike Williams. Yeah, he looks like Mike Williams in terms of the size and the speed, but he was a pretty weak contested ball catcher at the college level. He didn't really get separation much either, and that's not a great combo when you're not good at making those tough grabs and you're not great at separating. Only 3 red zone touchdowns across his 3 college seasons. Tank Dell, for comparison, we were talking about earlier, had 26 red zone TDs in that same span. That's just because he wasn't Quentin Johnston. You'd think he'd be a red zone terror, but no. More of a chain mover, great after the catch, could definitely carve out an intriguing role. Remember, Brandon Staley said when we scouted that TCU state championship, college championship game, that he was the best player on the field. And that was tons of the Georgia's talent. He still thought Quentin Johnston popped the most out. who knows if we should really respect Brandon Staley's opinion at this point, considering he's one of the bigger bozo head coaches in the NFL. But regardless, there's certainly talent here. He's the exciting unknown rookie that we don't know yet. And if you don't need that Josh Palmer production, because when you get him, you're probably going to get like a top 35 guy, right around 30 to wide receiver 35 any given week. We've seen the ceiling. I think it could be a little bit higher in the Kellen Moore attack. And he's the guy I would prioritize in 80% of situations, like I said. But if you're really good at wide receiver, you do not need any production right now. You just want the highest upside play. Quentin Johnson does carry a bit more long tail upside and could have that rest of season value really develop as the year goes. But I still think Palmer's going to be useful from here on out, has that stable floor and a similar ceiling to Quentin Johnson, even if it's not quite as high. So I really would prioritize him. I think both guys worth about 20, 25% of your FAAB at minimum, just because it is such an explosive attack. Like I said, 31% of their drives right now, number 2 in the NFL, ending in touchdowns. You want to be any piece of this into your fantasy portfolio. And I think both these guys make critical adds, both top 5 adds on the waiver wire. Again, prioritizing Palmer myself, going for that floor, that safety, similar ceiling, but a little bit of a higher upside stash with Quentin Johnston if you want to go that route. Now, speaking of high upside stashes, Marvin Mims is such a ridiculously efficient, insane profile here, like a ticking time bomb that I believe will explode in fantasy and bring points in bunches sooner rather than later. Let's talk about what we're seeing and what we project to see momentarily. Pre-draft, we referenced Scott Barrett in his rookie receiver breakdowns. He had Marvin Mims as his number 2 wide receiver prospect. And just to quote him, his reasoning broke down to efficiency. So this is Scott Barrett here. Mims' NCAA freshman season ranks as one of the most efficient seasons of all time on a per route basis. His sophomore season ranks as one of the most efficient seasons of all time on a per target basis. And then his junior season was one of the most productive and most efficient seasons by any number of stats of any wide receiver in this class. And then the combine confirmed he's a freak athlete. Add it all up, and Mims has the second best analytics profile of any wide receiver in this class, and it's a historically great profile without many warts. Now, we look at how he's done at the NFL level so far, barely played, but when he's in, it's almost guaranteed to be a big play at this point. Among all wide receivers with at least 25 routes run, Mims is number 1 in both fantasy point per route run, 1.25 points per route run, which that's an insane pace right there. And yards per route run is ridiculous, 7.2 yards per route run. Anything over 2 is a great number for a wide receiver in yards per route run. If you hit 3, you're at elite. 7.2 is insanity. For comparison's sakes, right now, Tyreek Hill is at 5. And yeah, he's got more usage and more routes. So that's just insane. But it goes to show you, like, he's number 2 on this list. And Marvin Mims is the one outpacing him right now. And you look at the production when he's in there. 14% of routes in week 2, 8% of targets. What does Mims do with it? 30% of the Broncos' air yards, an average depth of target of 45.5, and a whopping 20.3 fantasy points on just 2 catches, 113 yards, and that score. You move on to week 3. Gets a little bit of a bump up, 28% of the routes, 15% of the targets. That's pretty nice. 33% of the air yards, 25.4 average depth of target, and 16.3 points per game. 3 catches, 73 yards, and a 99-yard kick return touchdown. When he's out there, Russ has shown love for him. 33% and 45% targets per route run. Last week, it was 5 targets on just 11 routes. And on those plays, he now has 8 of the 10 longest gaining plays on the season for the Broncos, despite, again, being about a 15 to 20% snap player. He is dominating that list of long plays. He's bottom on the team, playing behind Brandon freaking Johnson at this point. So the question becomes, when he's being used, he's just elite efficiency, unlike maybe anything we've ever seen. Again, on the level of Tyreek Hill right now, and he has that type of speed and that type of profile. My God, and maybe more Tyler Lockett than Tyreek. But let's get to the question here. Why is he not in there? Why is he playing behind Brandon Johnson? My answer is I have no freaking clue. Joe Lombardi, the biggest moron offensive coordinator in the league, perhaps, says playing time will be dictated. This is after week 2. Will be dictated by game flow and personnel groupings. So game flow, game script, when you're getting thrashed by 70 points, doesn't call for you to have your most explosive playmaker in there on the season right now. the guy that's accounting for 30% of your team air yards, the number one receiver again in fantasy points per route and yards per route run right now, that isn't the script that you want him in on. I don't know when you're ever going to play him. So it sounds like they almost don't want him to succeed. If you read the quote further, you don't get in and run all the plays. Mims is someone you're counting on. He's going to have a role every week. When his number got called, those 2 plays, the defense cooperated with him to give him those big plays. Yeah, he didn't do anything. He's not talented at all. Yeah, it wasn't Mims. The defense just said, hey, take the yards. It's almost as if they don't want him to play and don't want him to succeed. It makes no sense to me. Now, reasons to expect this to maybe turn around. One, he was hand-selected by Sean Payton, the first pick of his coaching tenure. Despite not having a desperate need at wide receiver, they went and got this kid. So you got to think at a certain point, Sean Payton clearly saw something. How can he not see something at the NFL level, given that he's still getting it done? Sutton, meanwhile, fumbling 2 balls, dropping a 60-yard touchdown last week. He had a good 8-catch, 90-yard touchdown day, and it was so much worse than the box score looks there. Russ is going over 300 yards in back-to-back weeks. The defense is absolutely horrendous. They're going to be in weekly shootouts, so they're going to need their most explosive players out there, and we're seeing a really good chemistry here between Marvin Mims and Russ with those moon bobs. Hopefully, you got to expect Russ to maybe vouch for his guy here. I'm a huge fan of this player, clearly. As you can see how frustrated I am just even talking about this lack of usage. But it also does point to a ticking time bomb for fantasy. Matter of when, not if, that usage goes up. I don't think he'll maintain that insane 7.22 yards per route run, but he could absolutely spark fire for the rest of the fantasy season. So Marvin Mims, 27% rostered, I think 15% of your FAAB. And if you don't need any immediate production, even maybe more upside than Romeo Dobbs, who I said 25% of your stash, more upside than Quentin Johnson, Josh Palmer, Marvin Mims truly has the profile that could light it on fire if he ever gets the right usage. So I'm sitting on him wherever I have him. And if he's out there in any leagues, I will throw out a ton of money. I get 20% or so of my FAAB. Go after Marvin Mims. Behind him on the rest of my waiver wire pickups, I do like Eli Mitchell and Tajay Spears. I lump them together because they both fit that kind of handcuff with benefit mode here. We finally got some signs of Eli Mitchell. 11 carries, 42 yards, 3 receptions, 2 yards there. Nothing overly sexy, nothing overly efficient. But hey, welcome back to the field after McCaffrey in week 2 played 100% of the snaps, 77% of the rush attempts. It was nice to see Eli Mitchell at least get in for 36% of snaps, 28% of the rush share, and sure, dominating the Giants. Definitely played a part in that. They didn't need to continue to burn McCaffrey there, but I think we're going to see plenty of dominant performances from this San Fran team where they can then turn the keys over to Eli Mitchell. So he's a guy in bye weeks. Maybe you can toss him in the pitch. I bet he gets a few more touchdowns. We've seen just over historically, Eli Mitchell has, even after they traded for McCaffrey, averaged around 8 to 10 touches per game. It's been shocking to see McCaffrey have the stranglehold he does, given their usage last year was much closer than most people would think. To me, it is definitely more of a handcuff situation, and pretty much everybody, I'm sure. But he was the running back 12, Eli Mitchell, in half PPR points per game in 2021. Don't forget how good he can be if he is ever thrust into this lead back role. And I think this offense is even more dangerous with Brock Purdy than the one Eli Mitchell was the centerpiece for just a couple seasons ago. So definitely at 38% rostered, make sure Eli Mitchell is not sitting out there in your waiver wire. Now, 24% rostered is Tajay Spears. We've talked about him before, but now another data point comes in week 3, and he once again outsnaps Derrick Henry. That makes now 2 games of the 3 so far this season. Tajay Spears has been on the field more often than Derrick Henry. This week, he did approach 58.7% routes run. 60% is that elite running back metric if they can hit those right right there. And we saw Tajay Spears hit a 17% target share this week. So eventually, the Browns defense, very, very strong this year. They, in fact, are limiting teams. They've only given up, entering this week, they hadn't even given up anything other than a field goal to other offenses. The only touchdowns surrendered were because of pick sixes from the offense there. So Tajay Spears, I'm not holding it against him that he wasn't overly efficient this week, didn't do a ton of work. I think this receiving role will land some standalone value sooner than later, especially because the Titans just look pretty atrocious so far this year. I think they're going to be in more negative game scripts than in years past. And clearly in those scripts, rather than Henry being out there, it's Tajay Spears. And don't forget Henry did hit officially that 1,800 carry mark, which has been historically the death knell for running backs. The cliff hits right around either 30 years old, or if you hit those 1,800 carries. He's at 29 years old. At January, he'll be 30, and by then, certainly well above the 1,800 carry cliff here. And maybe again, it was just the Browns. Like I said, against Tajay Spears, I'm not going to hold the 11 carry, 20-yard game against Derrick Henry too much, but that's among the worst performances we've seen in 5 years. Is this a sign of the cliff is near, or was it just a down game against a really good defense? I do lean to the latter, but I do think Tajay Spears with that receiving role, handcuffed with benefits, and one of the ultimate handcuffs because he got Houston for 2 games in the fantasy playoffs as well. One of the worst run Ds last year, still a really bad one this year as well. So I think Tajay Spears at minimum handcuff, but with that receiving role continuing to grow, could give you some benefits there as well. Wrapping up my top 10 list are a couple Patriots. And I'm not just trying to have homer bias here. I think Kendrick Bourne and Ezekiel Elliott are out there in well over half of leagues and should be rostered in nearly 70%. Kendrick Bourne, let's start with him. He's top 20 in wide receiver targets so far this year, 11, 9, and 5 across his 3 games. They didn't need to throw at all against the Jets, but more often than not, this Patriots team isn't great, and they're going to probably be throwing it far more often. Mac Jones is still 3rd in the NFL, despite only attempting 20 passes last week. 3rd with 125 pass attempts right now on the season, behind only Kirk Cousins and Matthew Stafford there. And Kendrick Bourne has now run 74% of the routes. He is no longer in the doghouse, one of the most asinine stories of last year. Got tons of hype, Kendrick Bourne, as the summer went along and as his role continued to grow. He's always had that nice chemistry with Mac Jones since they joined the Patriots together in 2021. I imagine that will continue to grow here. Yeah, Parker's back, but still, tons of usage. Kendrick Bourne, proven playmaker, maybe the most dangerous guy the Patriots have out wide and still out there in, like I said, 70% of leagues. Go check him out. Now, Zeke, I saw get dropped a lot in week 2, 40% or so rostered right now. Check your league. See if he's out there because this backfield is getting closer and closer to a 50-50 split, much of the chagrin of Ramondre owners. Not great for him. 19 carries, 59 yards. For Ramondre, in addition to just 1 catch for 3 yards, a very down day, a hideous day for Ramondre Stevenson there. But meanwhile, Zeke Elliott, 16 carries, almost the exact same as Ramondre, and he outperforms him, 80 yards on the ground for Zeke Elliott. A ton of that coming in the 4th quarter, suggesting maybe Zeke has that bludgeoning the team down. After you got the lead, you enter the 4th, maybe we hammer you down with Zeke Elliott. And he looked more efficient than we've seen the last couple of years. He looks kind of slim compared to past ones. So quarter 4 hammer roll for Zeke Elliott here. Ramondre, kind of unimpressive at this point. And now we've seen Zeke's snaps grow from 31% to now 38%. But the big thing, the rush attempts, 21% to now 41% of the rushes going in Zeke's favor. So definitely a guy, his role seems to be growing. Definitely could see him getting more involved with the goal line as well moving forward. Zeke Elliott out there in a lot of leagues, as is Kendrick Bourne. I think this Patriots offense under Bill O'Brien, a lot more efficient than we've been used to these last couple seasons of garbage. Last name I wanted to make sure to highlight is Rasheed Rice, 26% rostered. Well worth, I'd say 5%, maybe even a little bit more of your FAAB. This is more of a forward-looking. He hasn't done anything crazy yet production-wise. Had that nice week 1, though, where he outscored anything Sky Moore did across his rookie year. And now only trails Travis Kelce in week 2 in terms of targets, 7. 5 catches were second on the team, and 59 yards were second on the team. 19% target share, also second on this team as well, with Travis Kelce the only guy above Rasheed Rice. And we're starting to see that role increase, 27%, 13%, and then 51% of the routes in week 3. So a huge leap up there, targeted on 33% of those routes. He's over his season so far, was minimally used, minimally on the field, but every time he was on there, it seemed to be a target. 42% targets per route run in week 1. And as mentioned, he had 12 PPR points, a top 30 wide receiver there. And then it really took a crater back the week after that. But as involved as we've seen him, 33% of the targets on his routes went to him, 19% overall target share there for Rasheed Rice. Not a massive day, again, 59 yards, but he just barely, similar to Tank Dell, got tackled on the 1-yard line. We'd be talking about a guy everyone's going out and spending that money for. So I think the signs are trending towards Rice's role growing and growing and growing here, especially because Sky Moore continues to go backwards. 64, 73, and now 59% of the routes for Sky Moore are going backwards. And what was Tony this week? Like 5%? Oh, 5% of the routes. And maybe that's the injury there too. But there is plenty of ground for Rasheed Rice to carve out a every down role within this offense, a Pat Mahomes offense nonetheless. So definitely worth your consideration. Probably not someone you can use quite yet, but should be on your radar. And for some deeper leagues, none of these guys are available in my league, Wolf. Well, take a look at maybe Matt Breida, 29% rostered. And I know, he just got bailed out by that touchdown, Wolf. He was horrible the rest of the game. I agree. But 11 PPR points, was the running back, 20, scored there. What I'm more looking at, though, is everybody sucks against the 49ers. He still played Breida 80% of the snaps, saw 40% of the rush attempts on this game, and a 9% target share. That's pretty good volume for a running back. Now, Saquon is suggesting he could be back this week. I don't buy that. I don't expect it. I think we get at least one more week of Matt Breida facing a Seahawks team, a much softer matchup than the 49ers he faced. So I think Matt Breida is out there in your league and you're looking for a running back. He will make a great plug and play. DJ Chark out there in 10% of the leagues, and he's fresh off an 11 target day, 4 catches, 86 yards, and a score in the Panthers, and they lost to the Seahawks there. And if Andy Dalton continues to be the quarterback here, even better, even more wheels up. They're going to be facing Minnesota this week, 3rd most points allowed to wide receivers. Anybody with eyeballs can recognize that is one of the most atrocious secondaries in the league right now for the Vikings. So DJ Chark, especially if we do get, again, Andy Dalton, 364 yards, 58 pass attempts, that will be beautiful if we get him. But even if not, I think Bryce Young can sling it down deep. 97% of the routes, led the team with that. And again, second with targets with 11, 19% share for DJ Chark. So somebody to check out there. Alrighty, Wolfpack, that wraps up all the players I wanted to go through. Let's quickly rip through one of the most important segments, the top week 4 defensive streaming teams. Let's make sure to get this right. We've hit a few out of the park so far this year. Starting at the top with the Cleveland Browns. They do have a bye in week 5, so not a great schedule either after that. Not someone you need to go blow a ton of money on to get with those scheduling circumstances. But you got to look at the fact that they lead the NFL, the Browns, in total defense, only 163.7 yards per game allowed, and only allowing 10.7 points per game through these 3 weeks. In 2 of their first 3 games, the Browns only held opponents to a lone field goal. 14 of the 26 points they gave up to the Pittsburgh Steelers, as mentioned earlier, came on defensive touchdowns after pick sixes given up by Deshaun Watson there. 9th in fantasy points through 3 games. They're 12th in. They're facing the Ravens here. 12th most points allowed as well. They really just struggled against the not very strong unit of the Colts. I think the Browns are in a great spot to do good things against the Ravens. Potentially an even better matchup, though, and more available are the Tampa Bay Bucks. 29% rostered. They'll be on the road at New Orleans, but I think this is the best streamer of the week. They held, again, the Eagles. They gave up a good 472 yards there, but ultimately they held Jalen. Sorry, I'm getting a coffee. I'm a little sick. I apologize there, Wolfpack. But they did ultimately now much softer matchup with the Derek Carr-led Saints. 20th in total offense, 26th in scoring offense. They do not put touchdowns on the board, and now they might be even without Derek Carr. They've surrendered the 11th most points to the quarterback position. And remember, they did pick off an explosive Jalen Hurts team. Yeah, they gave up a lot of yards. They picked him off twice. They're now 2nd in terms of team interceptions with 5, this Tampa Bay Bucks unit. They only held them. Yeah, they gave up a ton of yards, but only 23 points to the Eagles. That's really not too shabby. So Jameis Winston, we know this man. He's thrown 5 interceptions in games before. And yeah, he's been a lot more conservative since joining the Saints. But given that they had solid outings, 9-17, and then mediocre 5 points against the Eagles, I get that. But the Eagles is as tough as a matchup as you'll get. Their other 2 matchups, they thrived. They still have a ton of Super Bowl winning talent on this roster. Shaquille Barrett, Devin White, Levante David, Carlton Davis. There's still plenty of juice on this roster. I think they could be a great defensive unit here. And then the last one I want to shout out would be the Cincinnati Bengals facing the Tennessee Titans. This is a great spot. This defense gave up secured 6 sacks and 2 picks against that Rams team. And now they're getting a Titans team that's allowed the 2nd most sacks in the NFL so far. Their line is abysmal The Tennessee Titans also 29th in scoring at 15 points per game. They've given up the 7th most points to fantasy opposing defenses, given again the sacks they give up, given that they don't score on offense. And now we got a Bengals team that thrives at getting to the passer. Bottom 10 right now, this Titans team in both rushing and passing. They don't even have Henry looking good at this point. Just gave up giving up, again, second most yardage to sacks as well. So getting in horrible field positions gives that maybe pick 6, fumble 6, safety type of upside here. So love the Bengals as a streaming option. And if none of those three are out there, look to the Houston Texans, 1% rostered against Pittsburgh. Not the best offense, in my opinion. And we've seen this Texans team put up 8 and 12 points, 12 being against the Jags, this explosive Jacksonville attack. They had 2 turnovers. They also scored a special teams touchdown there. This Texans team also had 4 sacks against Baltimore. They definitely can get to Pickett in a Siev line there. So 1% rostered. If you're desperate, the Texans can make an intriguing stream. Alrighty, Wolfpack. That wraps up my pickups for the week. Let's dive on into every single one of your questions. If you don't mind hitting that thumbs up button as we start doing this, it does truly help us grow, get out to more people. It would be so greatly appreciated. So please do consider doing that for us. What's going on, Lomi? We already got Stephen Drake's super chat. Thank you again, Stephen. So greatly appreciated. Man, about pick Palms, my receiver, ARSB, DJ Moore, Flowers, Collins, and Bourne. Should I drop Bourne to pick up Palmer? Yeah, I would definitely rather have Palmer than Bourne. It just comes at the question, is that going to cost you moving up the waiver wire list? Is that going to cost you, how much spot? Because I don't think there's a huge discrepancy between Bourne and Palmer. So if you have like the number 1 waiver wire spot and Achane is not there, then yeah, I mean, I wouldn't blow the number 1 pick on it. But if you're kind of rolling around the mud, it doesn't really matter. You're at like waiver wire priority 9. And sure, yeah, I dropped Bourne for Palmer. I'd rather have Palmer rest of the season, but I still really do like Bourne. So it's not, it has to happen. That stack does make it even more intriguing. Lost Mike Williams, pick up Palmer, Godwin, or Johnson. I got to go Godwin there. I know he hasn't been lighting the world on fire with Baker Mayfield. I know Mike Evans is certainly Mayfield's guy in this offense, but Godwin, what a track record this guy has. There's no reason he should ever be on the waiver wire, Jeremiah. So I would go for Godwin. And if you have to start somebody, as we talked about with those other Charger receivers in the bigger breakdown, I think Palmer makes the much better immediate start. Think about picking up Musgrave and dropping Ertz. Yeah, I'd probably rather have Musgrave at this point. I know Ertz was among the highest tight ends in target share to kick off this year, but it's Ertz. He's doing absolutely nothing with the work. There's no ceiling there. Why even bother with that? I would drop Eli Mitchell for Achane. Absolutely. I understand, if something happens to CMC, Mitchell will be the number 1 blow it all type of pickup blow me, but we got Achane right now just looking like an absolute monster. He's going to have a weekly role. He also has handcuff upside too. So I'm all the way there. Look at you guys sporting a Vineyard Vine shirt, says Daniel. Hey, I forgot what I was even wearing, but yeah, I'm so classy. Wolfpack, absolutely. Last question for you, Lomi. Running backs are Bijan, Kamara, B. Robinson, K. Williams, Warren, and Mitchell. Should I be looking to sell it high on any of them? So yeah, you could probably try to package like DJ Moore and Kyron. I think any of these guys are okay sell highs. I mean, you're pretty good with Bijan. I wouldn't move him. But like Brian Robinson, Kyron Williams, I have them both. I like them both, but I'm not tied to either of them. I would wait for one of them to have another huge day, 20-point days well within Brian Robinson's out as it is with Kyron. So wait till one of them has a big day, package him with a mediocre 2, and then try to get that clear-cut number 1 wide receiver 1 to pair with ASB. What's up, Dylan? Who are you most willing to trade? Diggs, Ayuk, Hollywood, MT, Hopkins, Dell? I mean, I have no interest in keeping Hopkins, so fine trading him, MT, or Hollywood. It's just a matter of are you going to get anything for those guys? Who really wants those? So if you have to move one of the actual sexy names, like Dell is so sexy, right? And I'm in love with the guy, but I don't want to give up on Diggs. Diggs is a monster. Ayuk's a beast. So if you can get something for Hollywood, MT, or Hopkins, those are the guys I would absolutely move. This is a tough one, analyzing trades and whole teams and whatnot. I would just recommend, Dylan, we have a trade value chart on the site. We have rest of season big board, so you can kind of see who stacks up and how that goes. I'm probably going to start a Patreon so I can really dive into these and be a little more personalized and maybe just schedule one-on-one sessions with people. that's where a trade question like this could kind of work out, where I could look at your roster, look at your team. But it's just so like, I don't know, you got to find what teams need your strengths and what weaknesses you got to fill. There's just a lot to do a trade question like that. But if you guys would be interested in like a Patreon where I kind of sit down and meet with you guys one-on-one, I'd be absolutely interested in setting up something like that too. I think it'd be kind of fun and personal to meet with you guys. Should I drop Josh Kelly for Keaton Mitchell? Maybe. I don't know. I'm not like, I get the narrative, and Mitchell was pretty hyped up over the summer, but I'm not opposed KJ Frederick to dropping Josh Kelly. If these are the starts we're getting and a good matchup this week against Minnesota, that's what he's going to do. Gross. I still think Kelly has like some viability until Eckler's back. As soon as Eckler's back, get rid of him. But you don't want to drop Kelly, have your opponent pick him up, start him against you, and then that's the week he gets 2 touchdowns, right? I don't know that anybody else is on Keaton Mitchell right now. I think you're probably okay to wait that one up. I've only used 37 of 100 FAAB so far. How did you get all 3 of those guys on only 37, Jeremiah? You must be playing with people asleep at the wheel or not aware of how to use FAAB. That's incredible. Well done. I would have said blow all of it on any of those 3. So the fact that you have those 3, now go get Achane for like $10 apparently as well this week. Sheem, who would be my flex and wide receiver too? I have D-Hop, Addison, Moore, and Dell. I don't know which more. DJ, Eli, you got to be more specific there. I take Dell and Addison. I really, really like them. I'm out on Hopkins at this point. Eli Moore getting the targets, but not doing much if that's who you're going for. I think Dell, the rookies, Dell and Addison are the most sexy guys there. Would you trade Kyron, DJ, and Jake Ferguson for Ridley, Madison, and Goddard? I would. Yeah, I think Ridley's the best player in this deal, even though he's a little bit struggling these days. Madison, probably but I think Goddard, a good buy low here. I think Ridley, a good buy low. I'd prefer the Ridley, Madison, Goddard side, even though I don't love Madison. God, thank Dell. Hey, there we go, Bulldog. We've been hyping this guy up for weeks now, so I love to see the Wolfpack landing him as much as can be. Who would you rather drop Bourne for? Campbell, Downs, or Mims? Is Campbell Paris Campbell? Want nothing to do with him. Josh Downs? Nah. Mims. You heard Lomi how I talked about Mims. Such a sleeping giant here. When he gets that usage, he's going to explode. So much ceiling there. I'd rather have Bourne than everyone other than Mims on that list. And Bourne and Mims are close. If you need someone to use now, Bourne's actually probably more useful. So do I use D-Hop for Moore for flex? Again, I don't know which one more. Is it DJ Moore or is it Eli Moore? You got to be more specific there, bud. Mark Yosko. Would you trade James Conner and Nico Collins for Chris Olave? Yes. Yes, I would. Olave is an absolute monster. 35% of the snaps in the slot now. After getting basically no burn there, those layup design targets, the touchdowns will come. I'm a huge fan of Chris Olave's role. Jose Sierra, what's going on? Do I trade Rashad White and Garrett Wilson for Waddle? I would do that, yes. That's a great way to unload Garrett Wilson. The only way this turns around is if they actually get a real quarterback in there. And so far, they continue to endorse him. So it's horrible. And now, what's up? Please rank these 3 rest of the season. And again, I have a rest of the season big board, guys, so go check that out. I mean, I honestly don't like any of these guys. Bateman can't even get it done when Odell Beckham's out. He's behind Nelson Aguilar at this point, so he's the bottom. I would say Wandale's probably the top. He only ran, 10 routes and got targeted on 5 of them. I'm intrigued to see Wandale's role moving forward as he gets his legs under him. So he's my favorite there, then Mingo, then Bateman. And I would absolutely say that's a win to get Ridley for Garrett Wilson. I don't know who did that, Ryan, but well freaking done. Do I sell Drake London? Yes. Who do you target? Whoever they'll give you. This passing game is so hideous, so no. How much FAAB? Definitely rewind, but as I said at the top, I'd put it all. I want everything, and I buy this player. I buy the offense, obviously. I buy the fit. It's so perfect. Do it all. And yeah, definitely, as some people responding to each other. Oh, Rico, this did not pop up. My apologies to keep you waiting. Generous super chat. Thank you so much for supporting your boy. I always say that you get to cut the line, and I apologize, Rico, for missing you here. For whatever reason, it did not pop up there. But you traded away Nakua and B-Rob for JT. Good trade. I don't know, Rico. It's tricky. Could it be a good trade? 110%. There's a few ways this could really work out well. I actually just wrote about this today. Me and my man Truth tag team this piece. We're seeing how good Zach Moss is. I mean, the running back 6 in fantasy points per game right now. That's because this offense, Shane Steichen, it was a big worry of mine was the Colts are going to blow, so why do we even want to take the risk of Jonathan Taylor? They've been great. 10th in points, 5th in total plays. They're running a ton of plays every single week under Shane Steichen. That's similar to what he did with the Eagles, but then they don't get huge leads, so they have to keep going fast with this team. So if JT stays with them, plays, comes right back, if Zach Moss can be a top 6 running back, JT could go bananas. Could be a league-winning move for you. That being said, I love Puka Nacua. I know he had his down night last night. Down night still, 10 PPR, 11 PPR points. Still had a decent night. And yeah, I get, eventually we're going to get Cooper Kupp back, and he will be the one, right? Yeah, if he's healthy. But if he's healthy, it's a big if. We haven't heard anything about him running routes, being out there. It's certainly a question mark if he's going to come back fully healthy and when that's going to happen. And will he stay healthy? It's not been the case these last couple of years for Cooper Kupp. So, and even if he is, let's assume Cooper Kupp's fully good. Nacua is going to be Robert Woods there. And we've seen Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp be top 12 in fantasy. So I think you gave up a true wide receiver 1 in Puka Nacua. I really do. I believe that. And B-Rob is, I think, a decent sell high candidate, but he's the engine of this offense, and Gibson just fumbled the ball away yet again. So the coach is completely furious with that guy. I don't think he's going to sniff the field, Gibson. I cut Gibson in my league. Hey, cut. See ya. Gone. So I think he gave up a quality running back 2 and a wide receiver 1 for a guy that could pay that off. He really could. That's JT's upside, but you're also absorbing a ton of risk. What if he holds out the rest of the year? What if he doesn't get traded or gets traded to a horrible team nonetheless? What if he's actually kind of hurt and this was a true injury that's happening here? So there's a lot of question marks with JT, whereas there's no real question mark that Nacua is going to get 10-ish targets a game. That B-Rob's probably going to get 15 to 20 targets. So I don't mean to bash you, Rico. I wouldn't have done this deal. I think it could pay off for you. It really could. But I think you could have probably just given up Nacua. You might have even been able to give up just B-Rob. So we'll see how it plays out. But I think you absorbed more risk than you needed to, even though the reward could be huge. So thank you so much for the super chat. I'm sorry that you paid me for me to only kind of bash your trade. But I'm going to give it to you straight and give it to you honest. And that's kind of how I feel about that one. All righty. We got Bulldog worth dropping JSN. Yes. In redraft, absolutely. Dynasty, no. Yeah, I still think JSN's a monster for Dynasty, but it's not happening right now. And at some point it will. There might be an injury to one of the receivers, but yes, there was an injury in front of Quentin Johnson. So let's see what happens there. Triple B's. I was thinking the same thing when I wrote it. BBB. Let's go. Better Business Bureau. Bengals, Bucks, and Browns. Let's go. Would you drop Drake, Godwin, Dell, or Najee for Achane? So yeah, I dropped one of these guys. I would honestly, I think any of them, but the one I would drop first here is probably Drake London. Najee Harris too, honestly. XY Zipper, either of those guys. I don't know if you could get rid of that. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe you could pull off a trade with the name value there. But I think, again, any of these people, I think Achane is better than them. I would probably drop Najee first, right? It depends what your strength is, if it's receiver or running back. But I'd say Najee or Drake. Jack the Snack, what's up? I hit the thumbs up. Hey, thanks, man. Much appreciated. And a reminder to everybody, please do consider that thumbs up button. It's so greatly appreciated to help us grow. And hit that sub to be here. We'll be live 4 times a week answering all your questions. Who was that guy in the Taylor Swift Dennis Rodman? I didn't see that at all, Jack. I don't know what you're referencing. I saw, obviously, Mama Kelsey get a little disgusted at Taylor Swift screaming, "Let's effing go," which I thought was pretty funny. I don't know who you referred to. If you can send me a link at Rose Street Wolf or whatever, I'll have to look into this. Who is this guy? If it was Dennis Rodman, that's even more classic. What a box that would be. Charlie Menelankis, is Gainwell droppable or still worth the hold in a good offense split backfield? I don't know. I think they keep talking about they're going to ride the hot hand, and if that's the case, I mean, we all see how much better Swift looks, right? Anyone with eyeballs can see that. So I think he's still holdable just because the extensive injury of Swift, the history there, and Gainwell's looked okay for his part. But it depends. For Tank Dell, yeah. For DeVon Achane, yeah. It really depends on who you're dropping him for. So yes, he could be droppable, but it is still such a good offense that handcuff value he has, and ultimately, he's still involved about 40% of the snaps right now. But I do think Swift is going to continue to pull away. So it really just depends on who you could drop him for. All righty, Eli coming in. Thank you so much, Eli. with that super chat. So greatly appreciated. 12-team, half PPR, 2 running backs, 3 receiver, 1 flex, QB, Fields. Running backs are B-Rob, Jones, Kyron. So I'll definitely do trades for super chats. You found my soft spot here, Eli. Kyron, Gibbs, Sanders, Roshan, Adams, Evans, Waddle. Nice receivers there, huh? So what would I be looking to do with this? I feel like your roster, you got some great receivers here. What I would be trying to do is maybe pair up I love what Evans is doing, and I don't even think it's necessarily so high. I think he's going to probably do this for a lot of the year. But I would say you're going to get the most bang for your buck with an Evans here, and maybe an Ayuk after a blow up too. I don't know that you're going to get much for Nico or Dell. I love Zay too, but you have such good receiver depth. I'd be probably looking to move Evans because he is just at such peak value. Maybe you can pair him up with a Sanders. If you had to go up to B-Rob, you go up to B-Rob, but Sanders coming up a good game. Maybe you can capitalize on that and see what you can get. Like a Evans and a Sanders, and can you get to a true running back one? Like if your team also, if you're 2-1, 3-0, and you can sneak in Austin Eckler, Saquon, you're one of these hurt running backs that you can absorb the pain for a couple more weeks, I would go for something like that. Or at minimum, be targeting a rest of season top 6 guy. Check out the rest of season big board, Eli, for who some of those top 6 guys. But I would try to pair really whatever running back someone would need with Evans to get a true running back one, absorbing that injury risk if you can. But if you're 1 and 2, then maybe going for one of the bigger names. Maybe you can get really low on Jacobs here and do Evans for Jacobs straight up, something of that nature. And because Jacobs is getting more receiving work than we've ever seen. He's just not getting anything down on the ground, but that will turn around. We've seen slow starters that held up from camp before. So I'd be looking to package Evans and or Ayuk with Sanders. If you had to go to B-Rob or Kyron, you could, and trying to get a big upgrade at running back, get that true RB1. That's kind of what you're lacking here. A lot of RB2s. That's how I assess that. Let me know if that helps you out, Eli. If that's kind of what you're looking for. All right, I'm going to rapid fire here, folks, just to kind of wrap this thing up. Unless you want to give me a super chat, of course, I'll take my time on that. But let's go. Thoughts on Jeff Wilson? You can stash him. I think he might have a touchdown potential role there, Nicola. But, I don't think he's a must hold if you have somebody else you could toss in there. But keep him in the IR spot for now. And I do think Zeke's going to keep getting valuable. Yeah, he looked good. And Ramondre hasn't looked great. I think he'll be that fourth quarter hammer when we're up. I just don't know how many games the Pats are going to be up at this point. Campanelli, I made it. I'm glad you still made it here, David. Great to see you. I forgot to put the call in, so this does not count against you. You're here. I see you. You're the man. Made it late after a work presentation. Hope it went well. How'd it go, brother? Lost Williams. Yeah, that sucks. Prioritize Palmer or QJ. So this is kind of, you rewind and get the full take if you'd like, Campanelli. Palmer's the now. QJ is the higher ceiling down the road, but honestly, I think Palmer has a pretty similar ceiling to QJ. So for the now and a similar ceiling, I like Palmer more. Quentin Johnson is if one of the two was going to go bonkers and have a top 20 ceiling, a Mike Williams type of ceiling, Quentin Johnson is more of the unknown. We know what Palmer is, and it's nothing crazy, but he has put up top 30 numbers in the 5 games without Mike Williams. So if you need that immediate fill-in, and plus in this Kellen Moore offense, even more upside, so maybe he has a top 25 ceiling in this Kellen Moore offense, I do prefer Palmer myself, even though recognizing Quentin Johnson would be the Hail Mary play if you just want to stash somebody. Zay and DJ Moore for Mike Evans. I'd rather have Mike Evans. I'm guessing it's Zay Flowers. If it's Zay Jones, 110% get Mike Evans. If it's Zay Flowers, I still probably would rather have Mike Evans. He's the best player in the deal. He's really motivated to play for that contract. But I do love Zay Flowers too. But if it's Zay Jones, it's literally don't even think twice. I'd get Diggs, Ingram. I'd give up. This is just too much shit going all over. I don't want Najee Harris. I think getting Diggs, he's the best player of the deal. But JT is tricky to give up. I don't know that you're getting much better there, Alex Payne. Too much going around. Yeah, you paid the best money there, and you snagged Achane on the whim. Hell yeah, let's go. It's too bad that QJ was the drop. I'd rather have Achane than QJ, so I think you did really well there. Would you drop Marvin MMs for Quentin Johnson? I love them both. As talked about earlier, Giuseppe, you got to rewind it. I think Marvin Mims is the sitting giant of fantasy right now, given the efficiency we've seen, and it's just going to be a matter of when he gets more of that. That being said, I'd rather have Quentin Johnson than Marvin Mims from here on out, like right now, because of the injury. So yes, but is there someone else you can drop instead? Is what I would say, because Marvin Mims has so much upside. I would not give up Higgins and Pittman for Waddle. No, Pittman's been a monster, 30% targets this year. So no, I would not. It's too. I know you have two studs already, but we haven't hit the buys yet. You need that depth. Would you drop Javonte or Rachaad White for Achane, Akers, or Gainwell? Achane's the top one. I don't know if I'd drop either of these guys. They're both getting pretty good workload and trending the right way. I'd probably rather have Achane than Javonte, though. Is there anyone else you could drop? Maybe. But if not, yeah, I'd probably drop Javonte for him. Should I drop DeAndre Hopkins? Yes. I mean, you really could, honestly. I'd rather have Tank Dell rest of the season, Tanner, but I'd rather have either of those guys than DeAndre at this point. 0-3 have Kelsey. Should I divide and conquer by trade? If you can get Amon-Ra and Laporta, absolutely jack the snack. I would do that, especially if you're 0-3 and need those pieces. What would I do with Nico Collins and Cortland Sutton? I don't know. They're both on my bench. Like, I like Nico a little bit more. Cortland did okay too. He's got a good role in an offense that's going to keep chucking. So I guess you keep him on your bench. What are you asking, C. Woodsy? I don't know. You hang on to him, I guess. If you can craft a trade, go for it. But I don't know that anyone's going to give you anything that substantial for either guy. Was offered to trade away Waddle, Mike Evans, B-Rob, and Christian Kirk to acquire Kupp, Flowers, Pickens, and Madison PPR. I just don't like huge deals like this personally, where you're kind of trading over your whole team for another whole team. I think I would not do this. I like Evans. I like Waddle. Kupp, it's could be the best player of this deal, but what if he doesn't come back? So I like the first side there, Jackson. I'd drop Elijah Moore. Yeah, I would. I dropped him in a couple leagues. Yeah, so I have no problem dropping Elijah Moore. 9 targets, only 40 yards. It's just not, and that's against the Titans, the worst defense there. Wolfpack, thank you so much for being here. On your way out, please do consider that thumbs up button, hitting that sub, joining the Wolfpack. It would be so greatly appreciated. Check out rotostreetjournal.com where all of our content is housed. I'll be live again with my man, The Truth, on Thursday for your Thursday night football kickoff, getting all your sit starts answered. My rankings are live at Rotostreet. I'll be updating them throughout the week. Do check it all out. Thank you so much. You can find me at RotoStreetWolf as well for more content too. Thanks so much, guys. Best of luck until Thursday. Can't wait to be live with you again. The Wolf of Fantasy Sheep, be the Wolf, guys. And go Anthony Richardson, Matt B. Later.